I finished Texhnolyze about 3 or 4 weeks ago, and I was completely fascinated by the character of Kazuho Yoshii. And so I rewatched episodes 1 through 10 two more times, and I took down notes. And we'll be doing a full breakdown, analysis, lore, interpretation, origin about Kazuho Yoshii. Everything there is to possibly know about him that I could find, and my own interpretations of a lot of the things that were kind of left to a mystery in this anime. Because the makers come from Lane, and they are Hanbei Renbei, and they deliberately make a lot of things very hard to understand or interpret, or just up to interpretation. And so, beginning with Kazuho Yoshii, I've read all over the internet that he was inspired by the Ubermensch, which is a character created by the great philosopher Friedrich Nietzsche over 150 years ago. He wrote a book called Thus Spoke Zarathustra, and in that book, particularly the prologue, I read through it, and I selected quotations that I felt inspired the authors to create the character of Kazuho Yoshii. So we'll start with that. Everybody wants to say, oh yeah, by the way, I don't, this is on my phone. I don't have the gear to do this with the pretty pictures and videos in the background. So this is the perfect video for those of you who like to just listen on the go. At least you want to read along to my script. Anyhow, these are my selected quotations. Everybody wants the same. Everybody is the same. Whoever feels different goes voluntarily into a madhouse. Formerly, all the world was mad, say the most refined, and they blink. We have invented happiness, say the last men, and they blink. I love him who justifies future and redeems past generations, for he wants to perish of the present. I love him whose soul is deep, even in being wounded, and who can perish of a small experience. Thus he goes gladly over the bridge. Behold, I teach you the overman. He is this lightning. He is this frenzy. There they stand, he said to his heart. There they laugh. They do not understand me. I am not the mouth for these ears. And I remember Yoshi has a line, something like, "These ears are not for my mouth." He doesn't. They kind of take straight from this. Must one smash their ears before they learn to listen with their eyes? Must one clatter like kettle drums and preachers of repentance? Let me speak to them of what is most contemptible, but that is the last man. And thus spoke Zarathustra to the people. The time has come for man to set himself a goal. The time has come for man to plant the seed of his highest hope. His soil is still rich enough, but one day his soil will be poor and domesticated, and no tall tree will be able to grow in it. I say unto you, one must still have chaos in oneself to be able to give birth to a dancing star. I say unto you, you still have chaos in yourselves. I shall join the creators, the harvesters, the celebrants. I shall show them the rainbow and all the steps to the overman. To the hermits I shall sing my song, to the lonesome and the toothsome, and whoever still has ears for the unheard of his heart shall become heavy with my happiness. To my goal I will go on my way. Over those who hesitate and lag behind I shall leap. Thus let my going be their going under. Human existence is uncanny and still without meaning. I will teach men the meaning of their existence, the overman, the lightning out of the dark cloud of man. Behold, I teach you the overman. He is this lightning, he is this frenzy. And this is Kazuho Yoshii. Now, we will go over episodes 1 through 10. We'll go over a few questions first, and then we'll go over episodes 1 through 10 in great detail and go through interpretations that I could come up with, questions, and we'll begin with a few questions in general. Now, this is assuming you've watched the anime. So if you have not watched the anime, you'll still be able to kind of understand me, because I'm gonna explain everything to you. But it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter whether you watched it or not. So how could the surface world produce someone like Yoshii? As we know, the surface world is revealed in Texhnolyze towards the end of the series, and we find out that the people that are on the surface, they're either very apathetic and melancholy and ghost or zombie-like, or they're cryptically joyful and optimistic. So we can tell that Yoshii is among the cryptically happy and optimistic type. But I think whenever people are born in a world, there are always people who are born who question things, who don't go along with the majority, who see things differently, or who are exposed to things that make them question what is going on. And so Yoshi sees this really weird, surreal type world that he was in, where he works with Tatsuya. And he got bored of it. He saw between the lines and he says, this is a boring world. I don't want to be like all these people. I want to go somewhere else. And so he hears about the underworld and how it's different. And he gets very excited to go and explore this world. But Yoshi is a anomaly, a very like a one in a million type person that was just produced from the surface world. It is said Ran sees one possibility of the future. Out of how many? Is there any relevance if there are several and she sees the wrong one? What determines what future she sees? Can she change it? So the exact words that her grandfather used are, Ran can peek into the future, the near future. However, the future is fluid and can change in many ways. Ran sees only one version of many possibilities. If you look at the first 10 episodes, she is working behind the scenes, and I mean I've never seen anybody talk about this before. And she's working behind the scenes to make sure the future she saw for Yoshi happens. You can see it with the way she manipulates Tatsuya around. Personality. So, toward the end of the series, it was revealed through a flashback that Tatsuya and Yoshi work together in a government building in the surface world, and they have a very creepy boss who is drawn very cryptically, and he's very optimistic and overly friendly, and he gives you the vibe that he's possibly psychotic. So this can explain Yoshi's personality, because Yoshi, he smiles a lot during the series. And he also has this demented type of feeling you get from his boss, and just people in the surface world in general are just creepy like this. Talked about that. So we see from the beginning in episode 1, Yoshi is walking down the same stairs Ichis did around the end of the show. It took him 4 days. I remember him saying to get down there. He took food, water, and just overall, he's looking forward to getting to the underworld and seeing what it's all about, because he's never been there before. Right away, Ran is the first one that notices Yoshi by watching him as he carelessly enters the underworld. Yoshi flinches back at the sounds of falling rocks, showing how he is a bit shaken by being in a strange land, but it's only Ran. Yeah, so in the beginning, Yoshi seems kind of paranoid. I'm sure he was told about how violent the underworld is, so he didn't want to be taken out that soon. He was being cautious. So Ran waves at Yoshi as if to say, "Follow me," and Yoshi follows her. He says, "An uninvited guest or a welcome guest? Let's see." So Ran waves again, and Yoshi laughs slightly. Ran runs up the stairs, and Yoshi says, "Demon, come this way." The way my hand is waving implies. So Yoshi refers to himself as a demon. Does that mean, is he talking about himself, or is he talking the way he might be being perceived? The elder asks Yoshi if he came from the hole by himself, and he says yes. Ran runs up to the leader of wherever she is and sees his desk. Oh yeah, so Ran runs up to her grandfather and sees his desk in her vision. She gasps for air, and the leader tells Yoshi he came at a bad time. So did Ran just see this vision for the first time, or did she see it again and brought Yoshi to protect him, since she could see from Yoshi's future he is skilled at combat? So yeah, the question is, why did she want Yoshi to follow him? Was it to save her grandfather, because she knows who Yoshi is based on being able to see his future and how skilled he is at combat? So that's one of the interpretations that I have. The chanting, salvation, vengeance, whatever people invade, and Yoshi shows remarkable combat skills. But from where? Where in the surface world did he learn that? So it is revealed later that Yoshi tells Tatsuya on the surface that he applied many times to go under. Does this application process involve training? Tatsuya doesn't seem like he was trained in combat. Yeah, we never got to see Tatsuya in real combat, besides like a standoff and you know. So in the towards the end of the series, in the flashback that Tatsuya has, Yoshi tells him that Yoshi seems jealous, and he told Tatsuya, I guess, kind of like to congratulate him that he's gonna go to the underworld. And Yoshi said he had applied several times for it to try to go, but he hasn't gone yet. But that he would go no matter what. And so once Yoshi applied and got approved, and it has to be obvious that they trained him in some way in combat to send him down to the underworld. But when we look at Tatsuya, he doesn't seem to have any kind of skills or whatever shown. But then again, they both had different reasons for going down under. Because Tatsuya was just trying to follow his dream of being a train conductor or whatever he was doing with trains. So episode 1 concludes episode 2. Ron's grandfather asks Yoshi why he came down from the surface. Yoshi smiles and says no particular reason. He just wanted to go there. He could be being honest here. Yoshi looks over the city as the old man calls and says they are safe thanks to him. He looks over at Ron and smiles. Future can change in many ways. Ron sees only one version of many possibilities. Yoshi says he thought things would look like this, but at the same time they are different. He's talking about what he's observed from the underworld so far. The old man asks Yoshi if him coming down here is good for him and the city, or bad for him and bad for the city. Yoshi smiles, looks down, and closes his eyes and says, Ran has already seen the answer. Yoshi asks her, grandfather must be important, and she asks if she likes him. Ran, I think, says nothing here. Yeah, without reply, she offers him a rice ball, and he says, are you sure? Is she grateful for what Yoshi did in saving her grandfather in the beginning? So episode 2 concludes. Episode 3. Yoshi shows great respect for Ran, says he will do whatever he can to help her. He says the world of Lucas is a place completely unfamiliar to him. So this kind of ties into how we find out that he looks like he's partly Texhnolyzed, but he doesn't acknowledge it as that. And so what we thought was that it was a possibility that Yoshi had been there before, into the underworld, in the city of Lucas, and that he may have been injured and was Texhnolyzed by the science lady. But Yoshi says that he's never been to the underworld before. And when somebody asked him if he was Texhnolyzed, he said that would be great. And so whatever type of weird cyborg type modifications Yoshi has from his arm and chest, he received from the surface world. Yoshi then says all the more reason to, but doesn't say what did he mean here. Based on what he said before, he seems curious about it. Yeah, so he's showing a lot of curiosity about the city at first. Next is the scene where Yoshi tells Ran not to tell anyone or him of his future. Why? Maybe Yoshi didn't want to kill the surprise of it. Maybe he didn't see he saw himself probably dying. I'm not really sure why he didn't want to see his future. He smiles upon reaching the city. As he looks around the buildings and obelisk, he notices Onishi passing by in a car. He seems to know who he is. It's a mystery why Yoshi knew who Onishi was. We do learn later that he had a picture of him in his bag, but who in the surface world told Yoshi about him? And what did he say? And for what purpose did Onishi kind of for what purpose did Yoshi kind of follow Onishi around? It can't be. It's immediately just curiosity. Episode 3 ends. Episode 4. Walking by the depressing, dead-looking Bai populace, he looks a bit disturbed at seeing it up in close. As an old man with no arm walks by, Yoshi stops and stares closely at the lack of the arm. At the time, we don't know he has a mechanical type arm. He also implies later that despite having his arm and part of his chest rebuilt robotically, he isn't necessarily Texhnolyzed, as I said. Another clue is that Yoshi is never seen looking through the Texhnolyzed point of view. So we've seen characters like Onishi and Ichis. We get to see them through their own eyes, through their own Texhnolyzed point of view. For Yoshi, we never do. And based upon how Yoshi reacted to the man with no arm, he probably had a very traumatic experience where he lost his arm. But again, it's a mystery what kind of technology was used on Yoshii to rebuild him with those robotic parts. So next, Yoshii starts going on the history of the city and who is in control. He is seen reading a book. It seems the surface world gave him some data on the underworld. Yoshii then approaches an area and says someone told him he'd find him here. Then we understand why Yoshii knows who Onishi is. He has a picture of him in said book, like I said earlier. Onishi does happen to get out of a car in front of Yoshii. He looks at him, and Yoshii stares back and just nods. All this attention on Onishi, and Yoshii doesn't do anything in that instance. So it seems Yoshii is going to scheme something. After eating a meal, Yoshii writes in the book that which now appears to also be a diary about his fresh observations of the underworld. Unfortunately for Yoshii, he runs into trouble by two kids who take an interest in the gun in his bag. Yoshii runs after them, but he gets too tired and stops. He bumps into Ran, who just stares at him. She walks off, and Yoshii gets caught by the kids, who point his own gun at him. At this point in the series, Yoshii is seen as a main character who means well. Perhaps the one watching this would feel bad for him at this point. Yoshii tells them he will give them the gun for the bag. The kids decline. One of them shakes the bag, and Yoshii says to please not be rough with it. The kids say, "Who do you think you are?" And he says, "A tourist." So, since he appears to have cybernetic parts, maybe he has gear in there that recharges them. However, we find out later that Yoshii plants an explosive device in Shinji's bar den. So it's possible that it's the explosion device that's in there, and that's why he's telling the kids to not be rough with it. That's probably what it is. Because when we look at the bomb, it's shaped just like the bag. They get into a fight where Yoshii dodges the bullet of the gunshot in almost point-blank range. He punches the two kids, and one grabs him and rips the jacket, revealing he has a robotic-like arm. The kids say, "A Texhnolyze?" Yoshii says, "That would be nice." I suppose this means he has something more inferior. So what is he? That is never answered. Yeah, they never reveal the origin or the background behind his cybernetically repaired parts, body parts, arm and chest. Shinji shows up and tells the kids to leave him alone. Yoshii accuses him of being the leader and says he just wants the bag back. Shinji takes a closer look at Yoshii and says, "You," while Yoshii gives him probably the most creepiest smug stare to an ominous sound effect. This would confuse people who assume he is good at this point. Did Shinji perhaps recognize by Yoshii's surface world clothes that is where he is from? Maybe that's why he said "you." Another theory is that Shinji recognizes the creepy happy characteristics of surface world people in the way he seems Shinji presents himself. In the way he seems Shinji, so basically that was a very strange part in the anime when Shinji says "you" and Yoshii gives him this very creepy smug smile. So I think that he recognized that this guy is different and he's probably from the surface world. I think that's probably why Shinji reacted that way. End of episode 4, episode 5. Shinji takes an interest in Yoshii and allowed him to drink at the bar with his people. We see Yoshii is not a good runner, and he says he doesn't have good ears to really be in a bar, so he goes to the rooftop where Shinji meets him. So, yeah, he doesn't seem very athletic from what we've seen. Yoshii asks him if he is from the outside world. Perhaps he thought Yoshii's attire was foreign and recognized as being from the outside world. That's the only reason I can think of how Shinji would know, unless he just assumes because he had never seen him before in the city. Anyways, Shinji asks Yoshii, "What is it like out there?" And Yoshii says, "Go see for yourself." Shinji says, "Is something out there?" And Yoshii gives the interesting answer. "There is if you think so, there isn't if you don't." So this ties into the weird, hallucinogenic, paranormal, and just outright creepy and surreal surface world, as we see later on in the series. It's just a surreal, creepy place where very strange things happen. So that's probably why Yoshii gave him that answer. Then Yoshii says something that gets recognized a lot from the fans. He says, "True freedom can't lean on anything. It's transient, lonely, and arduous. You can't hope for security or reward beyond it." So true freedom can't lean on anything. So freedom doesn't last forever. Well, freedom, it depends, because nobody has really ever achieved freedom historically because something always happens that takes it away. So that's what you could say what he meant. And it is a lonely journey. And the rewarding, yeah, you can't really expect. See, when it comes to freedom and revolution, you don't do it expecting a reward, because a lot of times you have to give up your life for it, and people way after you are already passed will be the ones that will benefit and want to reward you for it. I mean, you'll be gone by then. So that's a very interesting thing that Yoshii said there. So then comes the infamous sex worker scene. Yoshii goes to look for a woman to sleep with, but but he ends up going to a bar first, and he's uninterested in all the young women who are there. But he is told someone outside could get him an older woman, experienced, as Yoshii requests. He finds a creepy guy that gets him in, and that creepy guy looks like Lupin the Third. That was what I kept staring at him like he looks very familiar. Like, oh, he looks like the guy from Lupin the Third. So he finds a creepy guy that gets him an older woman. After asking some personal questions, she gets upset and attacks Yoshii. Yoshii acts in self-defense and nearly punches her in the face. They make peace, and Yoshii says he actually wants to talk. The woman starts giving Yoshii information about the city, which he writes down on his journal. The part next is where we start to see a very different side of Yoshii. The woman explains that because of what happened to her body and how she looks, no one would want her. She also states she is tired of this life and wants to get away. Yoshii still calls her beautiful, and they embrace. The viewer would think Yoshii has to be a good person by now. So there's a lot of confusion here, because people trying to figure out, like, is this guy the main character? At the same time, Ichi's story is folding out, so it's still unwrapping at this point. As Yoshii undresses, he reveals his arm and parts of his chest that seem to be robotically modified. After they sleep together, she goes to bed comfortably and with a smile on her face. Yoshii is already dressed, lays his hand on her, and says, "I will set you free." And so we're thinking, okay, so this woman will probably become a major character in the series. Probably go on an adventure with Yoshii. I guess that's what people would have thought at this point. Oh, brightness too high. So, but then Yoshii says that she'll set her free. And so Yoshii goes up to the pimp, who is fanatically laughing and I suppose expecting payment, and shoots him to death as the train passes. The pimp wasn't even scared at having a gun pointed at him and smiled even harder. It is revealed he killed the woman. It is revealed later that Yoshii killed the woman, and that was what he meant by setting her free. Yoshii says that this place is definitely brimming with living energy, but that half measures won't do. Does he mean he needs to do much more harsh things than this to start something? Episode 5 ends. Episode 6. Yoshii then sees the science lady and seems to follow her. Yoshii gets off a train, sees someone he recognizes, and smiles. It's Tatsuya, one of his old co-workers from the surface world, who appears to be working with trains. He eventually confronts her and gives her another creepy smile. He has the same cryptic happy vibe from the weirder characters on the surface world. As they talk, she has no idea who he is. But while she talks to him, he says, "So I heard," which could also be a reference to the information the sex worker he killed gave him. Science lady is creeped out and keeps asking Yoshii who he is and where he came from. Yoshii just smiles and lets her know he knows all about some of the secrets of the city. After Science Lady pushed more questions, Yoshii says he likes it here in the underworld. He also told her that he likes her. And so he says, "It might be the first time I've seen humans who behave so human." He's referring to the zombie-like behavior of people in the surface world that he basically grew up with. Now here is a strange plot hole where the scene just drops and nothing more is explained as to what happens between them. The next thing we see is the science woman naked in her lab. And so, why did Yoshii follow her? And what did they do after this point? they completely left this completely unanswered and just left in the air. So that was kind of strange. Because I would have liked to see Science Lady's reaction to Yoshi's arm and chest was slightly, robotic. Episode 6 ends, episode 7 starts. Yoshii looks at some type of phone tower covered with wires and smiles at it. It is revealed why later, because he uses it to hack or make a phone call. Yoshii meets up with the important character he smiled that he saw or at Tatsuya. So, sorry about that. So he tells Yoshii that when he came down to the underworld, he got a job working with trains. That's Tatsuya saying that, which he said is a dream come true. Being from the surface and similar to Yoshii, he has a very strange vibe and appearance compared to everyone else. He is more similar to a drone, dead-like, and but kind of like the people in the surface world. But that's his Tatsuya, because that's where he's from. Yoshii, sorry, it's just like a car driving by that kind of creeping me out. So Yoshii tells Tatsuya that his existence is becoming obscure on the surface world. Tatsuya asks Yoshii if things are still the same as always. Yoshii says no changes whatsoever, aggravatingly so, showing his distaste and frustration with the weird zombie-like boringness of the surface world. Yoshii comments to Tatsuya that he has a question for him, whom he once aspired to be like. It is revealed near the end, as I said before, that Yoshii seemed jealous that Tatsuya went to the underworld before him, and that Yoshii really wanted to always go. Now that he is there, that is why he said he once aspired to be like him. Tatsuya said he died already and is someone else, and closes his eyes with sorrow. Yoshii asked Tatsuya how he should report what he has experienced above. To who exactly, since the surface world seems full of zombie-like people? Who was Yoshii planning to report to? That's another thing that's kind of just never revealed. Like, who sent Yoshii? Who? Tatsuya tells Yoshii that the factions are barely holding a truce and are on the brink of fighting each other again. Yoshii begins impersonating faction members and assassinating some from others to instigate the situation. Tatsuya also mentioned sniper incidents that Yoshii went ahead and did himself after. Yoshii continues by calling the factions and tricking them with false statements or fake statements. Onishi has a vision while unknowingly talking to Yoshii. Later, it is found Ran was the one talking to Onishi telepathically. It seemed that way. Did she send him the images of Yoshii? And if so, why? Yeah, so why did Ran reveal to Onishi that he's talking to Yoshii? Why? Because we know that by the end, the voice of the city that Onishi was talking to was Ran. Ran was the one that was telling him things, so she was the one that must have been sending him these images in his head. Going back to the table conversation, Tatsuya asked Yoshii if he would just go back to the surface world quietly. Yoshii says he has no intention to go back quietly, that I want to see much, much more primitive human energy gushing out. I guess you could say that. Tatsuya laughs, what seems the only time in the series. Because of Yoshii's instigation, one of the factions sets another's buildings on fire. Tatsuya sees this from a distance and seems worried about Yoshii. Shinji notices it and remarks people are now crushing each other. Yoshii hears what Shinji says and says, fight, and crush each other. That's exactly it, Shinji-kun. Yeah, when Yoshii is talking to Onishi on the phone, he sees the people driving by with the gasoline tanks. So he saw what led to the explosion or sending the building on fire. And we can see that Yoshii's trying to instigate and just cause all this madness, but he has a reason for it. Episode ends with Yoshii setting an explosive device based on the shape and size of the shape and size of the device. It looks as if that was what he seemed to treasure so much in the bag. So if Yoshii came just because he wanted to, and no significant reason in particular, why bring a bomb? Because after that he doesn't have the bag anymore. So it's obvious that was a bomb. So if he was just going out of curiosity, why bring a bomb? Episode 8. Before the explosion hits, Ran suddenly wakes up and places her hand on Shinji. As a seer, she must have seen the explosion Yoshi sent, and they went off. She tells Shinji she already saw the fire when he asked her if she was going to see the other fire from the Organos goons. And she was talking about Shinji's den blowing up, but she didn't tell him that. As Ron and Ichis walk away from the bar, they bump into Yoshii. Yoshii makes a harmless comment, and Ichis attacks him with punches. Yoshii effortlessly dodges all of Ichis' attacks and smugly makes fun of him before leaving. So we can see here that this guy can easily dodge Ichis, which makes a scene towards the end make no sense to me whatsoever. Yoshii betrays Shinji by blowing up his bar, killing and wounding many. Shinji himself was also hurt. Yoshii's plan is coming into action, and the factions are now fighting and killing each other off. He says to himself, who should he keep alive, and who should he get rid of? It seems he is trying to decide who should be the catalyst to something new and who is just in the way. I think he decided that the one that he would get rid of is Onishi, and the one that he would keep is Shinji, as we see based upon what he does later on. The episode ends with Tatsuya looking out a window, possibly at what happened as the factions fought, then somewhat startled from behind as Ron confronts him with her stare. Maybe she has a plan for him, considering what happened. Did Ron feel a certain type of way by what Yoshii has done? So Ron is going to Tatsuya because I think she has a purpose for him that she wants to help bring about. That's what I think. Episode 9. Yoshii is pointing a sniper rifle. He once again asks himself who to keep alive. He tries to snipe Onishi. Onishi somehow saw it coming and moved. Was this Ron telling him? It wasn't revealed. So how did Onishi know? Throughout the series, it has been shown Ron has been talking into Onishi's head. So how did Onishi know to move and that he was being sniped? They don't explain this at all, because it looks kind of random and nonsensical. But I think they didn't show it, but I think Ron might have told him, like, you need to move or you're about to get shot, or maybe showed him an image of Yoshii with a sniper gun. Satisfied this far, Yoshii says things are really getting interesting now. For the next move, he moves in on Onishi's wife with a gun, just as Onishi calls her to leave the house. By now, it's well established that to one watching, he is becoming a chaotic type villain, but he has a purpose. So he's chaotically good in a sense. But he knows what he is doing and what his plan is. Now, Onishi's wife is a very strange character. She has this really, she's like always smiling and apathetic and also kind of cryptic. I think that the only way you can explain the way Onishi's wife so oddly behaves is that she is from the surface world. That's right. That's why I think she is the way she is. Onishi asks Yoshii what he wants, and Yoshii says, a spectacle with the entire city involved. Suddenly, Onishi's wife attacks Yoshii with scissors, but they do nothing since they scratch the metal parts of Yoshi's chest. Enraged, he loses his cool and kicks her into a glass wall, causing her to get a massive head wound that kills her. The look on his face after this is a look of disgust, oddly so. He readies his gun to shoot her, but 4 men come in for backup. He takes them all effortlessly. He now looks even more psychotic, smiling and crushing one of the guys next with his boot. So Yoshii is presented as a calm, cool, collected character, but he lost his cool when the wife slashed him with scissors. They didn't even hurt him, and he just kicked her into a glass wall and just killed her. And his face like twitched, like kind of like at the end when everybody's faces were twitching. So yeah, it was a strange moment where he just became mad, and then from there he just became this more and more chaotic. The way he is crushing that one guy's neck and smiling at him. Next, Ron takes Tatsuya to go to Tatsuya. Is it Tatsui? Well, anyways. So next, Ron takes Tatsuya to go meet Yoshii, where the second important dialogue between them happens. Tatsuya seems unsure of what Yoshii is doing and wants to call the whole thing quits. But Yoshii says he doesn't care at this point and talks about the people from the hill coming down. How does Yoshii know this? Then he spells out part of his plan based from all the chaos he has been putting out. I want to enlighten them so they can believe more in their own power. Now I'm beginning to see that is my mission. So we go back to the quotations I told you from the prologue to Thus Spoke Zarathustra, and we're seeing the resemblance now. Despite all this, Ran just watches on. Yoshii then points the gun at Tatsuya, upset that he has done nothing by his life since he came from the surface. Yoshii tells him, "You have to give more meaning to your meaningless life." Again, back to what I was reading to you guys from the prologue, how the overman, the Ubermensch said that I will give man meaning in his life. So he accuses Tatsuya of hiding behind the city as a shield. Yoshii tells him he has to improve. Episode 9 ends. Now episode 10. As Yoshii gathers people together and shows Shinji the people of the hill, he is becoming more and more mad behind his grins. He goes to Tatsuya and Ran to see Shinji. Yoshii wants him to take part in a plan with him. So they all gather up at near the top of a building, and Yoshii is about to snipe some people, including the people from the hill he was talking about. But before Yoshii can shoot the man from the hill from far away, Shinji points the gun at him and figures out that Yoshii is the one setting everything up, and realizes he probably was the one that blew up the den, which he did. Yoshii doesn't directly answer the accusation, but Shinji asks him, as everyone else has, "Who are you?" To which Yoshii says, "To give you an answer you can understand as you are now, I can only say that I came from a different world." That's an answer that doesn't really answer. But I mean, we already know he's from the surface world. Can't really interpret much from that, really. Anyways, despite the gun being drawn on him by Shinji, Yoshii aims back up at the man at the bottom of the hill and says, "If that man dies here, it will lead to fabulously exciting things, don't you think?" He widens his grin. Shinji looks surprised, and Yoshii tells him that is where he comes in. Shinji tells him, "You're having fun messing things up, but that's all you're doing." This is what the audience keeps misinterpreting about Yoshii. This is what all these YouTube comments I keep seeing keep misinterpreting about Yoshii. They think that he's just messing around, he's psychotic, he's just trying to kill people. No. No. Yoshii has a plan. So Yoshii tells him, "So are you, although you don't seem to know what truly lies beyond. But I thought you would understand. Shinji is the one Yoshii wants to keep." Yeah, so this is like Yoshii telling the audience, because this is probably what the creators thought, that they would think that, we thought you'd understand, but you don't. So Shinji keeps the gun drawn and says he refuses to let him kill that man. Tatsuya then draws his gun on Shinji. Yoshii then adds, revealing part of his master plan. "This spectacle is one big event that I'm organizing. In order to create a leader who will awaken you all, I'm thinking about giving you a chance to be the first one to step forward and take that position." So do you guys see what Yoshii's trying to do? Because he's trying to save the city of Lukis by causing an instigation that will bring forth a revolution to shake up the order. And out of this order being shooken up, and out of this revolution, leaders will be created by Yoshii. And Yoshii wanted Shinji to be this leader. So Yoshii goes further. No one in this city is truly awake. Onishi appears running towards the man from the hill. Yoshii proceeds to try to snipe the man from the hill, but Onishi pushes him out of the way. Then it appears Tatsuya is shot or grazed with a bullet as he grabs his shoulder, possibly by Shinji, and Shinji flees. This distracts Yoshii. Then there is a short, very interesting scene with Ran. Shinji leaves. Yoshii grins and says, "Now that's more like it," and goes after him. Tatsuya gets up to follow them, and Ran grabs him, saying, "No, don't go. If you go..." And then the scene cuts. This is an interesting scene considering Ran knows what is about to happen. What future did Ran see for Yoshii? Did she want it to happen? And police just drove by. So anyways, so what future did Ron see for Yoshii? Did she want it to happen and had to stop Tatsuya to make sure it happens? So I think that Ron might have possibly told Tatsuya, no, don't go. If you go, you won't fulfill. She could have said a lot of things. That you won't fulfill the future that I saw for Yoshii. You won't kill him like I saw in his future. But Yoshii did tell her not to tell anybody or himself his future. So Ron might have just said that if you go, you won't fulfill Yoshii's future. It's really open to interpretation. They did this very deliberately. So many things that could have happened here. So Yoshii goes down and tries to gun down Onishi. He tells Onishi that they say he can hear the voice of the city, and he wants to know what is said of him. Does he know this from when he had Onishi's wife hostage? How did he find this out? Rumors? Later in the series, the voice was Ron. If anything, it would tell him Yoshii is about to meet an unfortunate end. More police going by. And while Yoshii asks what it says about him, the view switches to Ichis. Showing an even more degenerate and cruel state of mind, Yoshii starts making fun of Onishi's dead wife to him as they engage in battle. Onishi charges with the element of surprise, enraged by what Yoshii was saying. And it brings Yoshii down. But he doesn't know about Yoshii's mechanical body parts and gadgets, and the blade does no good and breaks on Yoshii's arm. He sees where to go for the stab, and when he raises his sword, Yoshii unleashes a blade that pops out of his other arm and slices Onishi's chest open. Is that arm robotic also, or just some kind of sinister gadget? Yoshii steps on Onishi's flesh wound and tells him that it would be nice if he'd cry and scream, at least a little, especially since I can't enjoy something like this above ground. He could just easily kill someone on the surface world, unless there is some kind of law and order he meant that would prevent it. Yoshii tells Onishi that because of that he came from the outside, he can see more things, and that Onishi is doing what he is trying to do also, except Yoshii says his way is more advanced. At this point, Ichis feels the need to move in and stop Yoshii. He tells Yoshii to get lost, and Yoshii shoots at him. Then, in probably the worst thing the anime executed, Ichis somehow rushes in fast enough to punch Yoshii off and for him to fall several meters below. Pretty anticlimactic and pathetically executed, in my opinion. Yoshii had effortlessly dodged him before. Well, because Ichis is the main character, I suppose maybe he underestimated him. When Yoshii gets punched, he gets drawn in the same colors Ichis did when he had his arm cut off, perhaps to show it was a mortal blow. Yoshii then seems to be barely hanging on from a punch to the face in a short fall, crawls, collapses, and meets Tatsuya and Ran. Tatsuya is holding a gun, and Ran says, after all, nothing changes. Now, I don't know what that means, unless the writers are just trying to sound clever with no explanation. Is she talking to Yoshii directly and telling him that he failed in this mission and that things are going to stay the same? So Tatsuya goes up to Yoshii, who is choking but smiling as he looks at Ran and Tatsuya. Tatsuya says, "You must be exhausted." He points the gun at Yoshii's head, looks up. Yoshii puts on an even wider grin, and then Tatsuya shoots him in the head, killing him. It almost seems as if Ran set this up, or made sure it would happen as she saw this possibility. Did Ran kill Yoshii? That's the question that I have. Now, or she really seemed to have made the things come together to get to that point. Now, Tatsuya horrifically regrets killing Yoshii towards the end. Why? Wasn't he putting Yoshii out of his misery? I think the last thing that Yoshii told Tatsuya was, he called him by his name, and I thought that Yoshii was gonna pick him up, but one could say, oh, maybe he thought that Yoshii was gonna die, so he shot him in the head to put him out of his misery. But I think that Ron put him up to kill him, and I guess maybe Tatsuya knew that Yoshi was not gonna die there, and just felt extreme guilt for murdering him because he didn't have to do it. So maybe he let Ron manipulate him, or at least just make sure that that particular feature happened. And then we talked about the flashback. And that's the end. So yeah, so this is my full analysis, breakdown, origin, interpretation of Kazuho Yoshii. One of my utmost favorite characters in all of anime. And this is just a big rundown. And I hope you guys enjoy this. If you have other questions, interpretations, comments, feel free to share. And that's all I have. Thank you for watching this video.